5.1.
Why did you decide to apply?
I'd always really enjoyed watching The Island with Bear Grylls, and I think it's really the ultimate challenge, being stranded on a desert island, having to survive there with no help at all. I love being outdoors and going on adventures, so that side of it really appealed to me as well. So I sent off my application form, and the next thing I knew, I had a couple of interviews, and then I got a phone call saying they wanted me to go on the island. Never in a million years when I applied did I think I'd actually get to go. So I was absolutely stunned when they told me they wanted me to go on the programme. But at the same time, I was thrilled, and 2 weeks later we were off on a plane to the island.
What survival techniques did you learn?
So we learnt a whole range of survival techniques. We learnt how to make fire, which was actually quite complicated. You had to get the right wood from a particular type of tree on the beach and then use pieces of that wood and a shoelace to make fire. In our training, they made it look very easy. They had the fire lit within a few minutes. But in reality, it took us a couple of days before we made fire, but we did get it, which was amazing. Once we had fire, we could then boil water for drinking. The water we found was brown and green and had bits floating in it. So we would filter it through a pair of trousers or a shirt to get rid of the big clumps of dirt, and then we would boil it to kill off any bacteria or parasites. Amazingly, nobody got sick from drinking the water during our whole 5 weeks on the island. They also taught us how to build shelters to protect ourselves from the bad weather. In practice, the shelters were not that waterproof, and we had a lot of very wet, cold nights. They taught us how to navigate by the sun and how to build up a map of the island as we explored it. It didn't stop us getting lost, though.
Who or what did you miss most?
Before I went on the show, I said I'd miss my husband the most, but in fact, the thing I missed the most was most definitely food. It was all I could think about, and if I couldn't sleep, I would go through a list of different pizza toppings in my head to try and get to sleep. I really missed having a good night's sleep, although we did build shelters off the ground to stop us getting bitten by the insects and other creepy crawlies. It was really uncomfortable. Having clean clothes, I missed that as well. Putting on dirty, wet socks every morning is one of the worst feelings. Of course, I miss my friends and family too. But actually, what I realised was that I didn't miss many things. I definitely didn't miss having a phone or a computer or the internet, though as I said, I did miss clean, dry socks.
5.2.
What was the most difficult or challenging part of your experience?
Well, because you're put on the island with just the clothes on your back and a few basic tools, it means that anything you eat you have to find, catch and kill if necessary. So for the first week, we didn't eat anything at all except a few coconuts. So I lost 4 kilos in just a week. After that, most of what we ate was yucca, which is a bit like a potato, grows in the ground. But you have to walk a lot to find it. And even then, it would only be the equivalent of having a small potato each every day. So we were still hungry. We were able to catch some fish, and then we did manage to kill a wild boar. And also, because of the lack of food, we became really weak. So it was hard even to go out for a stroll along the beach. That became really difficult. It was also difficult being dirty all the time because the water we had to wash in was the sea. So you're obviously salty and covered in sand and you never really feel clean. When it rained, which was all the time, the ground would become really muddy and everything would just get absolutely filthy. We had a couple of weeks where the weather was really bad, so we were completely soaked, really freezing cold, wet, miserable and hungry. And the other thing that was really difficult was the tension between the groups and also within our group. Because everyone was very stressed and hungry and tired, it didn't take much for arguments to occur, and there's nowhere to escape from on the desert island.
What were the highlights?
So at first, even just landing on the island was a highlight because we were so excited and we were meeting all these new people we'd never met before, and we were full of enthusiasm and energy, and we just had lunch, so we weren't hungry. So when Bear Grylls picked us up on his boat and drove us around the island, and then he stopped in the middle of the sea and threw us out of the boat and told us to swim to the island, which was so exciting. And the last week was also a real highlight for me because the two groups came together and we built a communal shelter in the middle of the beach so everyone for everyone to sleep in and to enjoy, and we had a really good time. The weather at this point had turned really good, so we had a sports day and we had a talent show and even a wedding. It was a really fun week. But I think probably leaving the island was the real highlight. Best day of my life, even. It was so brilliant to know that we'd survived for 35 days, and seeing Bear pull up on his boat to come and collect us was just an amazing feeling. I felt both really proud and super relieved.
Out of the 16 people that landed on the island, 13, including Ali, managed to last the whole 5 weeks. 2 participants decided to leave before the end, and unfortunately, 1 had to go to hospital with an eye injury. By the last week, the participants had all realised that they were much more effective working together as one big team than trying to survive in separate groups. How much money they earned, or what their background was, turned out to be completely irrelevant. Both teams worked hard, kept their morale high, and survived.
5.3.
So I was absolutely stunned when they told me they wanted me to go on the programme. But at the same time, I was thrilled. Seeing Bear pull up on his boat to come and collect us was just an amazing feeling. I felt both really proud and super relieved.
5.4. Feelings. 1. Adjectives. 1. B.
I feel really miserable.
2. F.
I feel a bit homesick.
3. E.
I'm quite disappointed.
4. G.
I'm very lonely.
5. I.
I'm incredibly proud.
6. H.
I'm really fed up.
7. C.
I'm very grateful.
8. A.
I'm very upset.
9. D.
I'm so relieved.
10. J.
I'm very offended.
5.5. 2. Strong adjectives. 1.
Stunned.
2.
Devastated.
3.
Thrilled.
4.
Delighted.
5.
Astonished.
6.
Desperate.
7.
Overwhelmed.
8.
Bewildered.
9.
Horrified.
5.6. 3. Informal words and expressions. 1. B.
I was scared stiff when I heard the bedroom door opening.
2. A.
You look a bit down. What's the problem?
3. D.
I'm absolutely shattered. I want to relax and put my feet up.
4. F.
I was completely gobsmacked when I heard that Tina was getting married.
5. E.
I'm sick of hearing you complain about your job.
6. C.
When England missed the penalty in the last minute, we were absolutely gutted.
5.7. 1.
Hi, Sue. What's the matter?
I've just been robbed. Please come quickly. I'm desperate.
2.
You weren't offended by what I said, were you?
Yes, actually I was. I don't like you criticizing my family.
3.
What did you think of the film?
To be honest, I was a bit disappointed.
4.
What don't you understand in the report?
I'm completely bewildered by so much information.
5.
Were you surprised to hear that the boss is leaving?
I was astonished. I really wasn't expecting it.
6.
So, can you come to dinner next week?
Yes, we'd be delighted to. Thank you so much.
7.
How did your parents react when you told them you and Rita had separated?
They were devastated. It was such a shock.
8.
How did you feel when you heard the news about the plane crash?
I was absolutely horrified. It was an awful accident.
9.
Do you like the necklace?
I love it. I'm overwhelmed. Oh, it's stunning.
5.8.
Yossi and Kevin soon realised that going by river was a big mistake. The river got faster and faster, and soon they were in rapids. The raft was swept down the river at an incredible speed until it hit a rock. Both men were thrown into the water. Kevin was a strong swimmer, and he managed to swim to land. But Yossi was swept away by the rapids.
Yossi! Help! Help! Kev! Yossi!
But Yossi didn't drown. He was carried several kilometres downriver by the rapids, but he eventually managed to swim to the riverbank. He was totally exhausted. By an incredible piece of luck, he found their backpack floating in the river. The backpack contained a little food, insect repellent, a lighter, and, most important of all, the map. But the two friends were now separated by a canyon and 6 or 7 kilometres of jungle.
(5.9)
Kevin was feeling desperate. He didn't know if Yossi was alive or dead, but he started walking downriver to look for him. He felt responsible for what had happened to his friend, because he had persuaded him to go with him on the river.
Yossi! Yossi!
Yossi, however, was feeling quite optimistic. He was sure that Kevin would look for him, so he started walking upriver, calling his friend's name.
Kevin! Kevin! Kevin!
But nobody answered. At night, Yossi tried to sleep, but he felt terrified. The jungle was full of noises. Suddenly, he woke up because he heard a branch breaking. He turned on his flashlight. There was a jaguar staring at him. Yossi was trembling with fear. But then he remembered something that he had once seen in a film. He used a cigarette lighter to set fire to the insect repellent spray. And he managed to scare the jaguar away.
(5.10)
After 5 days alone, Yossi was exhausted and starving. Suddenly, as he was walking, he saw a footprint on the trail.
Ah!
It was a hiking boot. It had to be Kevin's footprint.
Kevin!
He followed the trail until he discovered another footprint, and then another. But suddenly he realised that the footprints weren't Kevin's footprints. They were his own. He had been walking around in a circle. At that moment, Yossi realised that he would never find Kevin. In fact, he felt sure that Kevin must be dead. He felt totally depressed and on the point of giving up.
$5.11.
But Kevin wasn't dead. He was still looking for Yossi. But after nearly a week, he was also weak and exhausted from lack of food and lack of sleep. He decided that it was time to forget Yossi and try to save himself. He had just enough strength left to hold onto a log and let himself float down the river. Kevin was incredibly lucky. He was rescued by 2 Bolivian hunters who were travelling downriver in a canoe. The men only hunted in that part of the rainforest once a year, so if they had passed by a short time earlier or later, they wouldn't have seen Kevin. They took him back to the town of San Jose, where he spent 2 days recovering.
5.12.
As soon as Kevin felt well enough, he went to a Bolivian army base and asked them to look for Yossi.
Mi amigo está...
My friend is lost in the jungle.
Selva. Deben buscarle.
You must look for him.
The army officer he spoke to was sure that Yossi must be dead. But in the end, Kevin persuaded them to take him up in a plane and fly over the part of the rainforest where Yossi might be. But the plane had to fly too high over the rainforest, and the forest was too dense. They couldn't see anything at all. It was a hopeless search. Kevin felt terribly guilty. He was convinced that it was all his fault that Yossi was going to die in the jungle. Kevin's last hope was to pay a local man with a boat to take him up the river to look for his friend.
$5.13.
By now, Yossi had been on his own in the jungle for nearly 3 weeks. He hadn't eaten for days. He was starving, exhausted, and slowly losing his mind. It was evening. He lay down by the side of the river, ready for another night alone in the jungle. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a bee buzzing in his ear. He thought a bee had got inside his mosquito net. But when he opened his eyes, he saw that the buzzing noise wasn't a bee. It was a boat. Yossi was too weak to shout. But Kevin had already seen him.
Yossi! Yossi! Yossi!
It was a 1 in a million chance that Kevin would find his friend, but he did. Yossi was saved. When Yossi had recovered, he and Kevin flew to the city of La Paz, and they went directly to the hotel where they had agreed to meet Marcus and Carl. But Marcus and Carl were not at the hotel. The 2 men had never arrived back in the town of Apollo. The Bolivian army organized a search of the rainforest, but Marcus and Carl were never seen again.
$5.14. 1.
If there was a fire in this hotel, it would be very difficult to escape.
I wouldn't have a car if I didn't live in the country.
2.
If it wasn't raining so hard, we could get to the top of the mountain.
3.
If I were you, I'd make Jimmy wear a helmet when he's cycling.
5.15. 1.
If they had found the river sooner, they would all have survived.
I wouldn't have got lost if I hadn't taken the wrong path.
2.
He would have died if he hadn't been wearing a helmet.
If the weather had been better, I might have arrived earlier.
5.16. 1.
If you came to class more often, you would probably pass the exam.
2.
If you had come to class more often, you would probably have passed the exam.
5.17.
I wish I was 10 years younger.
I wish I could understand what they're saying.
I wish we didn't live so far from my parents.
5.18.
I wish the bus would come. I'm freezing.
I wish you'd spend a bit more time with the children.
I wish you wouldn't leave your shoes there. I always fall over them.
I wish cyclists wouldn't cycle on the pavement.
5.19. 1.
It really infuriates me when people drive close behind me.
2.
I get very frustrated when something goes wrong with my internet connection and I don't know how to fix it.
3.
It's so embarrassing when I can't remember someone's name, but they can remember mine.
4.
I used to love shopping in the sales, but now I find it exhausting. After an hour, I just want to go home.
5.
I'm often disappointed with my birthday presents. My expectations are obviously too high.
6.
It amazes me that some people still don't do their banking online.
7.
I find speaking in public absolutely terrifying. I hate doing it.
8.
I've often been inspired by reading about how some successful people have overcome difficulties.
9.
I never find instructions for electronic devices helpful. In fact, usually they just confuse me.
10.
When I travel, I'm always thrilled if I manage to communicate something in a foreign language.
5.20. 1.
One thing I really regret is not being brave enough to ask out a girl who I met at a party last summer. I really liked her, but I was just too scared to invite her on a date in case she said no. I wish I'd tried. I'm absolutely positive we would have got on well. Now it's too late. She's engaged to another guy.
2.
Oh, I wish I'd had more time with my grandmother. She died when I was 12, and since then, I've discovered that she must have been a really fascinating person, and there are so many things I would love to have been able to talk to her about. She was Polish, but she was in Russia, in St. Petersburg, during the Russian Revolution, and she knew all sorts of interesting people at the time. Painters, writers, people like that. I was only a kid, so I never asked her much about her own life. Now I'm discovering all about her through reading her old letters and papers. But I wish she'd lived longer so that I could have talked to her about those times face to face.
3.
When I was 16, I got the chance to change schools and go to a better school to do my last 2 years. My parents were really keen for me to change because they thought I'd probably get better marks in the university entrance exams and so have a better chance of going to university. But I was totally against the idea because I didn't want to leave all my friends behind, and I didn't know anyone at the other school. So in the end, I managed to convince them, and I stayed at my old school. I did okay in my exams, but not brilliantly. Now, I wish I'd listened to my parents. It would have been much better for my future career, but at the time, I just couldn't see it.
5.21.
I wish I'd worked harder at school.
I wish I hadn't spoken to him like that.
I wish she'd told me the truth about her feelings.
5.22. 1.
I wish I hadn't eaten 2 pieces of cake.
2.
I wish I'd gone to university.
3.
I wish I'd bought those shoes I saw in the sales.
4.
I wish I hadn't told Anna about seeing her boyfriend with another woman.
5.
I wish we hadn't said we'd go to Simon's party tonight.
6.
I wish I'd been at the match.
5.23. 1. D.
I wish I hadn't eaten 2 pieces of cake.
Yes, you should have had more self-control.
2. C.
I wish I'd gone to university.
Well, it isn't too late. You're only 22.
3. E.
I wish I'd bought those shoes I saw in the sales.
Why don't you go back to the shop and see if they still have them?
4. F.
I wish I hadn't told Anna about seeing her boyfriend with another woman.
Yes, it was a bit tactless. I hope she's not too upset.
5. A.
I wish we hadn't said we'd go to Simon's party tonight.
Do you want me to phone and make an excuse?
6. B.
I wish I'd been at the match.
Yes! Watching it on TV is never as exciting.
5.24.
I wish. I wish I had said nothing at all. Everything that came out of my mouth was wrong. The words didn't help much.
I wish I had said that I love you. Everything that I said was not what I meant. All I want is for you to forgive me.
I wish I had said something to make everything go right. The only thing I should have said was what I really felt.
I wish I had said that I love you with all my heart, and that I'm sorry for everything that went wrong between us.